briefing, I'm going to be upgrading the voluntary evacuation on Bolivar to a mandatory evacuation. The reason for that is that they are now forecasting between 5 and 8 feet of water to be over Bolivar at some points in time. Also, the criteria are going to be met for suspension of the ferry service. So there will be the likelihood, not just the potential, but the likelihood that you will not be able to move around the Bolivar Peninsula for a period of time. We don't know how long. In addition to the mandatory evacuation of Bolivar, we have a voluntary evacuation for the bayshore areas of unincorporated Galveston County. That's San Leon and Baycliff. We are also issuing a voluntary evacuation for the Freddy'sville area, which is an unincorporated area along Highway 6. One thing that we need help with is that for these evacuations, if seniors or medical patients need help, we can help with evacuation. The number for that is the non-emergency number at the Sheriff's Department. It is 409-766-2322. We are expecting minor flooding in other parts of the county, but with the current setup of the hurricane coming this way, the majority of the winds will be pushing water away from the inland areas and not into them. So that's good for everyone except the bay side of Bolivar and the island. A number of cities in the county have issued mandatory evacuation orders this morning, and we just got off a call with all cities. Several others are going to be likely issuing mandatory evacuation orders as well as voluntary evacuation orders. Scott, with our office here, can get you a complete list of those. So you don't have to call around all 13 cities and get them one by one. We'll have them for you. The billboards from Clear Channel have been activated, so there are now billboards up and down I-45 saying that there are mandatory evacuation orders in place for Bolivar and for Galveston Island. So if you're not playing on your phone, and you shouldn't be, you should see those signs as you go up and down I-45. In addition, the state has positioned 50 buses here. My understanding is they did a test and we were able to get 20 people on a bus with social distancing. So that's a capacity of 1,000 people we can evacuate if necessary. Those buses are here. They're in Texas City. They're ready to roll. We also have approximately 25 ambulances for medical patients should they need to be transported. Still continue to have great communication with the state, the governor's office. We have several state employees here now with us from the Department of Emergency Management and the Department of Public Safety. They are direct conduits to Austin should we need anything from Austin. We have had direct communication with the White House, and we understand a FEMA representative will be here Thursday. They are flying in tomorrow. Hopefully they can get here, and they'll be here Thursday. The little bit of good news on this storm, it's going to be a wind event. There's no question. The good news is it's a relatively smaller storm. It's not nearly the size of Hurricane Ike or other storms, and it's moving quickly. So while some parts to the east of the storm will get some pretty heavy rains, that is unlikely for our area. We are expecting the minor flooding in the coastal areas and on Bolivar and the island like we talked about. We are expecting wind damage, but we are going to be spared freshwater rain, it looks like, from this storm. We still have Texas Task Force 1 here. We still have the Texas Search and Rescue assets available, and I think that we're as prepared as we can be. We just ask all of you to tell the people watching your station, pay attention. This thing has been changing fairly quickly, and it's still possible for it to move even further east and be more of a direct hit to us. No models at this point have it going east of Galveston County, which would put us on the dirty side of the storm, but they're quick to say that's not impossible. It's just not any of the forecasts at this moment.
Just clarify, east or west?
West, sorry, thank you, TJ. Nothing has it going west of Galveston County. It's all east, just how far east? 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles. So at the current, the last track that I saw, which was just a few minutes ago, it comes ashore just barely in Louisiana and almost immediately crosses over into Texas, aiming almost directly at that point for Beaumont area. But still, that's close enough to us for us to feel those significant impacts. Last forecasts I saw, all of Galveston County will see approximately 40-mile-an-hour winds and some places as much as 55-mile-an-hour winds.
How much more confidence do you have today than you did yesterday when you talked to us about where exactly this storm is going to go? Because it's been difficult.
It has been very difficult, and our confidence grows every time. In fact, they now have a confidence scale, and that confidence scale now shows about 70% confidence in what they're telling us and what they're forecasting.
Galveston has folks going to the community center to get buses to go out. Is there going to be staging areas for the Bayshore or even Bolivar right now for folks where should they?
We can quickly put one together. There is a staging area in Texas City, so that was already pre-planned and pre-positioned. That's why the buses are there. So we can move and have other pickup points, for lack of a better word, should that be necessary. At this point, we're kind of waiting to gauge and see what the requests are. From our service that I mentioned a minute ago, we only had one person that I could find so far that was registered in Bolivar wanting assistance for evacuation. So with one person, that's really easy. If it's 1,000 people, it's a little more of a logistics challenge, but we will get it done. To a question yesterday, we also confirmed that our shelter agreement with our location in Austin has got isolated rooms for anyone who's COVID positive. So they would be able to isolate there by themselves. The rest would just have to distance.
And the people who get on the buses, that's where they'll go?
If they choose to evacuate through our program, that's where they'll go, the point-to-point shelter in Austin, yes.
Can you give that number again, though?
Absolutely. The non-emergency dispatch number, if you need to register for help evacuating, is 409-766-2322.
We should stress that's for unincorporated parts of Galveston County only. If they're in the
That's
city
correct.
limits, they need to contact their city.
That's correct.
Judge, the ferry, until what time the ferry will be
It's an unknown. We just know that the criteria for the ferry suspending operations is a function of wave action and or winds. Both of the criteria will be met at some point, but we don't know for how long or exactly when that'll occur. So we fully anticipate Bolivar being cut off from the rest of the world for a period of time, 30 minutes, 6 hours. At this point, I just can't say.
Can you talk about what you know about surge? You mentioned it could be multiple feet above the ground.
Yes, they're currently forecasting 4 to 8 feet of surge potential. He was quick to say that's not going to be the entire peninsula for the entire time. That's going to be places on the peninsula for a period of time. And they don't know, and that's a function of how hard the wind is coming from the bayside, how far it goes up, how long it stays there, and how fast Laura moves out and gets out of our hair.
And based on what you've seen, the surge is greater on the peninsula than on the island?
The surge is equally bad both because they're both getting water pushed up from the bay. The island might be a little bit better off only because it's further to the west and won't have that direct hit. If you look at the map right behind you, there's nothing protecting Bolivar. It's got nothing but Galveston Bay water coming up against its bayside shore there.
So essentially, it's that back surge. That's
Correct.
gonna be the problem.
Because of the rotation is going to bring that water from the backside right onto the base side of Bolivar and Galveston.
So we're streaming this online. For those who may have missed the very beginning, would you mind repeating just where you were issuing mandatory evacuation?
Certainly. I had previously issued a voluntary evacuation order for Bolivar Peninsula. I have now upgraded that to a mandatory evacuation order effective immediately. Oh, sorry. And then issuing new voluntary evacuation orders for the bayshore areas of unincorporated Galveston County, which are generally known as San Leon and Baycliff, as well as an area called Freddy'sville along Highway 6 in southern Galveston County.
What message do you have for people on the peninsula who choose to not evacuate?
We wish you would reconsider, that's really all I can do. We don't have the resources, I'll be honest, we don't have the resources to go door to door and pull people out of their homes and have no intention of doing that. So we're giving you the best information that we have, telling you this is not going to be a safe condition. You are most likely going to be cut off. You're most likely going to lose power. You're most likely going to be very uncomfortable for a period of time, and hopefully that's as bad as it gets, but we can't guarantee that. I wasn't the county judge during Hurricane Ike, but the same message was conveyed to the Bolivar Peninsula, and I think there were 9 fatalities as a result of people deciding they would just stay there and ride it out.
Speaking of which, on Hurricane Ike, it's that example of folks all of a sudden needing last-minute shelters of last resort.
Right.
And people assume there would be that. That's not going to be the case at all, correct?
Correct. We're letting people know right now we do not have the ability to rescue you, so do not, I guess you can call, but we won't be able to get there. The conditions that make it unsafe for you to be there make it unsafe for us to try to rescue you. We will get there as quickly as we can once the storm passes. And again, it's moving quickly. We expect that it'll be receding by Friday morning. We'll have to wait and see. We don't get to predict. We don't get to direct these things. Just try to predict them as best we can.
The people they evacuating, Judge, what do they need to take, and then what do they need to leave behind? Because some people want to take everything. So
They should have put their kit together back in May when I started preaching this. But the kit's going to need to have things you need to survive for 7 days, and that's especially in this scenario. That's kind of a longer time frame than probably is necessary. Prescription medications, often forgotten about. This year, new PPE, if you feel like you need a mask, hand sanitizer, gloves, and then your pets. If it's not safe for you, it's not safe for your pets. Make sure you take them with you or have a place to take them. Also, one thing very important in this age, cell chargers. Make sure you take a cell phone charger. That's the lifeline for most people to get their news and information and connection with the world. So make sure you take a cell charger as well.
Important papers that they need to take or anything, Judge? Do you think?
Nothing I can think of other than maybe a prescription. If you don't have a chain where you can get your prescription transferred, then you may need that paper prescription. But we don't anticipate them being dislocated very long. So I don't think they'll go register for a driver's license while they're out of their home for a couple of days.
The evacuation route off Bolivar is Highway 87.
Well, there's two at the moment. There's Highway 87 and the ferry.
Okay.
But they're going to lose one and probably both.
Do you have any indication of when the surge might start reaching the highway? Because the people are saying the storm's going to make landfall tomorrow night, but the winds could pick up before that.
That is absolutely correct. So, but the winds, again, will be probably pushing the water away at the moment.
Okay.
So I'd have to ask a forecaster to verify me, but I'm guessing tomorrow night is when it might start getting problematic for people who are deciding to stay there.
It might be too late tomorrow night.
Right. And that's generally the case. Oh, this is worse than I thought it would be. Well, you're stuck now. There's no place. We can't get you out of there.
What
Beth?
communication have you had with CenterPoint in terms of being able to restore power should people?
CenterPoint has been great. CenterPoint's contact called me yesterday. He was vacationing in Colorado. He's on his way back here now. In fact, he should be here by now. They have always had a plan to locate trucks at Gulf Greyhound Park and be able to respond as soon as the wind allows them to do that.
We should point out that Entergy handles Bolivar.
Correct. Bolivar's handled by a different company, Entergy. And I have had no communications with them to this point.
I have questions for one of our news stations. I know you kind of touched on the subject.
Okay.
I'm going to ask to
Sure.
emphasize. What are the top 3 or 4 evacuation routes you want residents to take when leaving Galveston, Bolivar, and Surfside areas?
We only have about 3, so they can take any of one of the 3, and that would be going south to north, Highway 146, I-45, and Highway 6. Those are about your only 3 options going south to north. For Bolivar, you've got the ferry, which will get you to I-45 going west, and 87, which will get you toward Highway 124 going east. The problem with that is going that direction, you're going more and more into the storm. That's where the eye is going to be head in that direction. So you could go up to I-10 and then go west from there. But going off Bolivar to the east is probably not a great idea.
And where do you recommend people evacuate to?
To the plan they prepared back in the spring and early summertime. That's what we can't really tell them that, but there is going to be a lot of options, I think. People aren't really traveling much right now. Some schools just started back, so family vacations are kind of over. You should not have a problem, I wouldn't think, in finding hotels in Austin, Dallas, places that are close enough by. You can get there in a few hours and get back in a few hours.
Do you anticipate closing the toll bridge?
Already done.
Already done.
Done it this morning, yes.
Judge Louis, as you said, that obviously you're going to have the mandatory for Bolivar.
Yes.
There was a list I think we have of the other cities. I didn't know if you could provide that as well, so folks can understand how those evacuations, the voluntary as well as the mandatory.
Certainly will, and I just got handed this list by my crack staff, so I'll read them off to you. Voluntary is Bayou Vista, Hitchcock, and Kemah. Mandatory is Clear Lake Shores, the city of Galveston, Jamaica Beach, Lamarck, and Tiki Island. And we will keep these updated for you. We had several on our jurisdictional call a few minutes ago saying we'll make that decisions this afternoon or something along those lines. So we'll have more for you as they make those decisions.
Do you have anyone who can translate in Spanish?
We don't have a translator today, I'm sorry.
What are you most worried about at this point?
People not taking it seriously, the same thing I've been saying for 3 days. It's still true. That they're going to say, not that big a deal, it's moving fast, but it's also going to make landfall as a Category 3. That's kind of, I don't say unusual, but other storms, because they're larger and move slower, they get over cool water and they start to lose some of their energy before they make landfall. That will not happen with Laura.
Do you know if people have already been evacuated from the peninsula on their own terms?
We would assume so, but we don't have. There's no way for us to track that, so we can't say for sure because they don't have to tell us, and we just wouldn't know.
Just to clarify, you did close the toll, so no one's coming over from Missouri County. Is it out?
We just closed the toll portion, or I think you still use the bridge.
Oh, still
yeah,
use the bridge. Okay.
right. We just stopped collecting tolls around 7 o'clock this morning.
So when you guys going to close the crossway up?
That is a state function, and we do not close the causeway. So if the state were to decide to do that, that would be on their timeline and at their direction. At this point, I'm not speaking for the state. I don't see anything that would cause them to close it. The winds might be hazardous to high-profile vehicles, but Other than that, I don't see a real threat to anyone traveling the causeway.
What were the wind, based on the update you got right before coming in, what did the National Weather Service say wind-wise can we expect?
It's kind of split, and this is the problem they have, because they tell me that Galveston Island is different than Bolivar, but their program won't let them do that. Galveston Island sustained winds in the 35 to 40 mile an hour ballpark. Bolivar in the 40 to 55 mile an hour ballpark. Those are sustained winds, so not including gusts. Now, that's actually better than what they're going to experience on the other side of the storm. It's going to be much more dramatic over there, where they could have 70 to 100 mile an hour sustained winds on the east side of the storm. I made a mistake yesterday, so I stopped and think east-west. Anything else? Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you helping get the word out there and getting these people safely out of here.
Thank you, Judge.
See you.
All right, County Judge Mark Henry there at Galveston County from Dickinson today, giving us an update on some mandatory evacuations and what else the county is doing right now. So the big news out of this is the Bolivar Peninsula now is a mandatory evacuation zone. The county judge expects that to be cut off by Hurricane Laura. They're looking at 4 to 8 feet of water at some point over parts of the peninsula. And there's a strong likelihood that if you try to ride this out, you're going to be stuck there and they will be unable to rescue you if you need it. And the ferry is likely not to be running sometime soon, and flooded roads. And in other words, stay at your own peril there. The county judge is recommending everybody get out, although they will not go door to door and pull people out of their homes. They don't have the will to do that or the personnel to do that. But he is saying everyone should get off the peninsula at this point as Hurricane Laura heads that way. And that is a serious situation. Voluntary evacuations for the Bayshore area. Again, this is unincorporated Galveston County. That's San Leon and Baycliff and Freddy'sville, that area which is along Highway 6. There are a number of mandatory evacuations for cities in Galveston County as well, among them the city of Galveston and also Clear Lake Shores and Tiki Island, we heard there, among the others. So we'll get a longer list of those out to you at some point here today as we hear from other folks. We're expecting to hear from the city of Galveston at some point today as well, this afternoon. The governor is going to give us an update, as well as the city and possibly even Harris County, city of Houston, I mean. So we're hearing from a lot of folks today about what's happening in these individual areas as the forecast for Laura starts to get a little better and we start to have more clarity on exactly where she will come ashore. If you've been watching these cones, they've been moving a little bit to the west each time, which makes it a little closer to Galveston and Houston with each significant update that comes through. The next one coming up at 4 o'clock today. So in about 4 hours, we'll even have a better idea. And again, with this hitting either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, we're getting close enough now where the National Hurricane Center is feeling confident about what they're saying, up to a 70% confidence, as the county judge just said, about exactly where this is going to come ashore. But it looks like a lot of us here will get something out of this. How much, we don't know. It looks like a wind event more than a rain event at this point, but I'll leave all those particulars to our very capable meteorologist over there in the Weather Center when we get to them here at noon. That's coming up here in about 10 minutes. The noon newscast with Sherman Chow. As always, you can use the KHOU mobile app to track the storm's path, evacuation orders, list of school closures. Everything you need to know can be found on our app, and that's a great thing to have if the power goes out, because as long as your phone's charged, you can still get all that same information. And if you turn on the push alerts, then you can get those sent right to you. You're notified when something big happens. Also, keep in mind you can text a keyword, text the word storm on your phone to 713-526-1111. We'll send you links so you can get a hold of all this information very quickly. All right, we'll get out of the way now. Sherman Chow coming up with the noon news in less than 10 minutes. That'll have the next update, everything you need to know. Stay tuned for that. We'll see you soon.